Hi everyone, welcome back. Today we are solving Pascal's triangle. So the problem states that we are given an integer num-rows and we want to return the first num-rows of Pascal's triangle. And if you don't know what a Pascal's triangle is, it just means that each number is the sum of the two numbers directly above it as shown. So if you look at this diagram, 2 is the sum of 1 and 1, 3 is sum of 1 and 2. And then this will be 3, sum of 1 and 2, and so on and so forth. So if you look at these two examples, num-rows when it's 5, this would be the Pascal's triangle that we return. And when num-rows is 1, then it would just be up here. Then we return just an array of 1. So now that we have seen some examples, let's get to how we can solve this problem. So one trick that we can do for this problem is we can pretend that there are zeros on each side for the Pascal's triangle. So when we add through at the borders, then we can just add 0 and add the border to it. So if we look right here, we can add 1 and 0. Over here, we add 1 and 0. Over here, we add 1 and 0, and we put 1 over here. So that's just the main trick. And we can initialize with an array of 1. And we will keep adding an array until we have reached a number of rows. And then we can return that Pascal's triangle in the end. So let's go through this example real quick. So first, we will initialize an array of 1 and pretend there are zeros by it. If we add this, it will become 1, 1, and we add this to a resulting array. Then now we add it to this array, it will become 1, 2, 1. Add this to result. Add to this, it will be 1, 3, 3, 1. And then we do it again, and it will be 1, 4, 6, 4, 1. And now that we have reached a number of rows, we can return this as our result. So the time complexity would be O of n squared, where n is the value in num-rows, because we will add an array n times. And when we are adding the elements in each array, it can also take up to n elements. So it will take up to n times, so that's why it's n squared. And the space complexity would be O of 1 because we are not using any extra space. This doesn't count as extra space because we are returning it. So now let's get to the coding part. So first we will initialize to just 1. Since if you look at the constraints, the minimum is 1, so we can set that as the resulting array initially. And now we will loop through num-rows minus 1. And we will set a temporary array to 0 plus the last array in result and 0. And we will initialize row to an empty array. And now we will look through the last array in result. And then we will add the two elements that are adjacent to each other. So result append temp of j plus temp of j plus 1. And after we have finished completing the row, we can add the row to the resulting array, and then we can return the resulting array. Let's see if it works. Okay, perfect. Hope this was helpful. Thank you all for watching. If you have any other questions or comments, feel free to leave them down in the comments section, and I hope to see you all again soon.